Coming up next, the story of a classic rock band who took their music to a new level after hearing the modern sounds of several new wave and synth pop acts in the 80s. Thing is, looking at this band, you wouldn't think that they would be influenced by that particular genre. They updated their sound, adding keyboards to their guitar attack, along with some high-tech music videos for MTV, and they instantly blew up as one of the most recognizable bands on MTV in history. The thing is, they didn't really change at all. Outside of a little synth, they already had one of the most iconic looks in music, and their sound was amazing. They just needed more exposure, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer bunch of fellas. Up next, the story of that breakthrough hit that helped him, brought to you by Zenny Eyewear. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever owned a pet rock or multiple swatches, you're going to dig this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below right now to get the story straight from the legends, nostalgia all the time. It's a time machine. Also, join our Patreon for even more content. You can do that in the description below. That helps us to do more interviews. Also, we invite you to join us on October 29th in person with Sammy Hagar, Professor of Rock Live. Click on the link for tickets. You're going to love it. It's time for another edition of Number One in Our Hearts. This is where we celebrate a song that absolutely should have been a number one hit in its heyday. We honor them here and celebrate them so many years later. So after the release and subsequent cycle of their fifth studio album, Tejas, in '76, that little old band from Texas, ZZ Top, took a much-needed 2-year hiatus. During the break, the group's manager, Bill Ham, secured a new record deal with Warner Brothers, and the Tres Hombres that made up ZZ Top returned to action, recharged with a renewed vigor and a new label, Longbeards, and an adventurous spirit, of course. The music scene was changing as well, with exciting new sounds like punk with its rebellious spirit and the experimental wonder of new wave music. ZZ Top were the purveyors of Texas boogie, a formidable trio of musicians that have stayed together since the origin of the band in Houston, Texas, in 1969. With the late Dusty Hill, of course, on bass, the beardless Frank Beard on drums, and the group's founder, blues rock guitarist extraordinaire, Billy Gibbons. In the 70s, Gibbons created some of the most indelible riffs of the rock era, such as Waiting for the Bus and LaGrange.
Well, I'll be riding on the bus to my Cadillac.
73, Tush in 75. That reached number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Lord, take me downtown. I'm just looking for some touch.
And, of course, Arrested for Driving While Blind in 76, just to name a few. The rock community was enthralled by the upstart player Billy Gibbons. Hell, even Jimi Hendrix called Gibbons America's best young guitar player. During an appearance on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, with Flip Wilson as a guest host, Billy met Jimmy when his pre-ZZ psychedelic blues band Moving Sidewalks opened 4 shows for the Jimi Hendrix Experience in 1968. So cool. Billy's father, Frederick Royal Gibbons, he was a classically trained orchestra conductor, a concert pianist, and film score arranger who had moved from his hometown, New York, in the 1930s to Texas, where he conducted the Houston Philharmonic. The first album released for the re-energized ZZ Top was in '79. It was a powerful collection entitled Deguelo that featured the ZZ classic Cheap Sunglasses and a smoking rendition of Sam and Dave's I Thank You.
But what really knocked me out was the cheap sunglasses.
So the band followed up Deguelo with the LP El Loco in '81. That included the rock staples Tube Snake Boogie and Pearl Necklace.
Well, now boogie, little baby, boogie all night long.
It was in '81 that Billy Gibbons was riveted by the emerging new wave bands of the era. That fascination fueled his desire to push the envelope for ZZ Top and embrace new production technology, especially the thrilling capabilities of synthesizers and sequencing. Gibbons recalled seeing a sound check by Devo when the Whip It Good flower pot wearing pioneers were playing a gig in Houston. What Billy saw really inspired him, and it was the impetus for the idea of incorporating the synthesizer line on the El Loco track, Groovy Little Hippie Pad. Billy was doubly impressed with the techno energy of none other than Depeche Mode. Actually, Billy Gibbons went to see Depeche Mode in concert in 1982, and he called it a mind-bending experience, if you can believe that. He couldn't believe that a band could capture that kind of power, that kind of energy with no guitars and no drums. The sound Depeche Mode produced came from machines, but they still had blues threads in their music that really blew Gibbons away. After the show, Billy Gibbons met Depeche Mode backstage, and to put it mildly, the Depeche Mode band members were shocked to see him. Can you imagine? Billy Gibbons hanging out with David Gahan and Martin Gore. Actually, Martin Gore asked Billy what brought him to the show, and Billy responded, "Man, the heaviness." Can you even imagine? I think it's really interesting when musicians from seemingly different genres recognize the merits of bold expression by their peers and the importance of artistic evolution. That kind of exploration influenced ZZ Top's desire to expand on the synthesizer sound of El Loco and, blaze even further down an uncharted path with a combination of synthesizer, drum machine, and sequencer for the recording of their next album, the classic Eliminator. But just prior to the release of Eliminator, another thrilling new movement changed the landscape, called MTV. Music television. Certainly not known for their pinup looks, ZZ Top and manager Bill Ham knew that they needed to take advantage of MTV as an essential medium, to connect a new generation of fans to the band. Billy and Dusty, of course, already had those long beards, and all three members began wearing their signature dark sunglasses. The plan was to establish a cultural image for ZZ Top for the visual age of MTV. Bill Ham had the foresight to connect director Tim Newman about creating videos for ZZ Top to procure exposure on MTV. And Ham loved the music video that Tim directed for I Love L.A. Of course, Randy Newman, that was Tim's cousin, actually. I love L.A. The only guidance that Ham gave to Newman, though, as the director, was that the ZZ Top videos needed rock and roll, cars, and girls, of course. Newman developed a brilliant central treatment concept that he weaved into 3 music videos, one for Gimme All Your Lovin', Legs, and a track that Billy Gibbons called a successful marriage of a techno beat with bar band blues, titled Sharp Dressed Man. Billy Gibbons came up with the idea for Sharp Dressed Man when he saw a character in a movie credited as Sharp-Eyed Man. Speculated that the film Gibbons was referring to is the 1981 crime thriller The Amateur, starring John Savage and Christopher Plummer. Sharp Dressed Man was the 3rd single from the Eliminator album that was released in 1983. Eliminator was ZZ Top's biggest commercial success. Of course, sold over 10 million copies in America alone. This epic album was produced by Ham. Ham was instrumental to ZZ Top's success, co-writing songs, producing their hit albums, and constructing their iconic image, really. He remained the band's manager through the Rhythmine album, released in '96, and that supported tour. Sharp Dressed Man explodes with that unmistakable Billy Gibbons riff for the song's intro, including Dusty Hill's unforgettable guttural "yeah" and his bluesy shrieking. Before Billy begins one of his most popular lead vocal performances, of course highlighted by his cold vocal in the chorus, because every girl crazy about a sharp dressed man. Perfect song for ZZ Top. You think about it, the music video, the look, everything came together. And the second chorus, Billy thunders on with the guitar solos lasting for over a minute before the 3rd verse even appears. He filled this section with lots of twists and turns to keep it interesting and layered 2 guitars to create a compound track. For one of those guitar lines, he played a Fender Esquire with a slide. The other played on his 1959 Les Paul, the Pearly Gates, in standard tuning. Both guitars were played through a Marshall plexiglass 100 head with 2 angled cabinets with Celestion 25-watt greenbacks. Now, the Les Paul that Billy played on, that's referred to as the Holy Grail of Les Pauls. A lot of you guitar enthusiasts know this. Billy bought the coveted Les Paul guitar that he played Sharp Dressed Man on for $250 from a rancher who lived in Downey, Texas. And actually, Billy has been offered $5 million to sell that guitar, which of course would be a handsome return on his initial investment of $250. But of course, Billy vows that he will never sell it. Gibbons and the band, they're pretty adamant about not compromising their principles or their most prized possessions for mere money. In other words, they can't be bought. Of course, they already have a lot of money, so that helps. Another example is how they turned down an effort to sell razors. I guess Gillette offered Billy and Dusty $1 million in '84 to shave off their famous ZZ Top beards. They, of course, declined, proving that they did put integrity of the music before the almighty dollar. I mean, $1 million in '84 would be like $3.5 million now. So they did. They had integrity. Pre-production recording engineer Lyndon Hudson was very involved in the early stages of molding the arrangement for Sharp Dressed Man, while engineer Terry Manning was reportedly responsible for all the musical parts of Sharp Dressed Man, except the lead guitar parts. It's a very cool track with a grinding rhythmic power that turned on the teenage audiences infatuated with MTV in the 80s without alienating ZZ Top's core fan base. I think they had a great balance there with how they did that. Tim Newman's music video for Sharp Dressed Man was in heavy rotation on MTV for a long time. It was one clip in a trilogy of videos that featured a customized fire engine red 1933 Ford Coupe. The souped-up coupe known as the Eliminator car. It's actually owned by Billy Gibbons and is primarily on display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum in Cleveland. The connecting theme of Newman's videos for ZZ Top featured a down-on-his-luck attendant who was swept away by 3 beautiful women, the same women in each video. In the clip for Sharp Dressed Man, the hapless Cinderfella, if you will, is a valet, and he encounters the same 3 girls, like I said, that were placed in the videos for Gimme All Your Lovin' and Legs. And is once again given the keys to the Eliminator, the hot rod by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Angels, ZZ Top. Although Sharp Dressed Man rose to number 8 on the mainstream rock chart, it surprisingly stalled at number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is hard to believe because I heard it on the radio all the time. Its legacy has proven far more impactful than its peak chart position back in '83, though. I mean, the song has had significant placement in pop culture since that time, especially in a variety of TV shows. There was Twin Peaks, Duck Dynasty, King of the Hill, Ugly Betty, Cold Case, Full House, Miami Vice.
One of my favorites, Sharp Dressed Man by ZZ.
Do it again! Do it again!
Stop spinning my son!
It's also featured in the 2007 movie Evan Almighty starring Steve Carell.
No!
Man, ZZ Top Eliminator was a big part of my growing up years. I got my copy I bought with my own allowance right there. I've kept it all these years. I remember I was Billy Gibbons for Halloween one year. I had a fake beard, my dad's big sunglasses, and an old cowboy hat. I mean, this band was one of a kind. I remember lip syncing to the album, playing air guitar all the time. I remember one of the neighbor kids had a Hot Wheels car that looked just like the 33 Coupe, but it was orange. I wanted it so bad. I traded like 4 Hot Wheels of my own, like even a General Lee was in there, and 2 Star Wars figures for it. My dad was a painting contractor, like I've told you, and so I talked him into painting it red. I used to listen to the album on my Walkman while I was playing with that car. A few years later, I remember I found a model kit of the Eliminator, the exact car, and I saved up my allowance to buy it. I'm not even a car guy. It was a perfect choice when the band was tapped for the soundtrack and the appearance in Back to the Future 3. I love that. And of course, I was as heartbroken as anybody when I heard of Dusty Hill's passing a short time ago. Dusty is such a vital part of ZZ Top. their sound, with his distinct voice on both lead and backing vocals. His bass lines were so big, distorted. It's the perfect complement to Billy's upfront guitar sound. I was always confused as to why the band wasn't bigger on the charts. I mean, their songs were played all the time. The three big songs from Eliminator, Legs, Gimme All Your Lovin', and Sharp Dressed Man, not only played on the radio all the time, they were played on MTV as well, especially Sharp Dressed Man. But it doesn't matter because all these years later, the song is number one in our hearts. We'll always remember it. It's interesting that ZZ Top's biggest hits were Sleepin' Bag and Legs. Both of those topped out at number 8. The week the Sharp Dressed Man was at his peak position, Every Breath You Take was spending one of his 8 weeks at number 1. And actually down the chart with ZZ Top were a few rock songs that should have been a lot bigger than their final chart position. Robert Plant with Big Log. Heart had How Can I Refuse. There was also Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel, which we've covered. That had re-entered the charts at that time.
Should I rest for a while this summer? Climbing up on Salisbury Hill.
Again, that's how great the 80s were. To have so many great songs and only so many slots on the charts for these songs. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hill, and Frank Beard have constantly made music that's much bigger than even the state they came from. To end on, we want to remember bassist singer Dusty Hill. He passed away in his sleep on July 28th, 2021. Both of Dusty's ZZ Top compadres said at the time, and I quote, "We, along with legions of ZZ Top fans around the world, will miss your steadfast presence, your good nature, and enduring commitment to providing that monumental bottom to the top. We will forever be connected to that blues shuffle and sea. You will be greatly missed, amigo." End of quote. Thank you, Dusty. Leave us a comment about this song in ZZ Top. What are your memories of this band? What do you remember? What songs do you remember hearing on the radio? What are your memories behind it? You can hear the songs below. I'll link to it. To be a sharp-dressed man or woman, go design a pair of sunglasses at the link below. Check us out on Patreon as well. Help us keep the music alive. That's the idea. Till next time, 3 chords to the truth.